The single plane swing review just keeps on rolling, and this week I'm going to answer a couple of the questions that I pulled from the videos that you submitted, and I'm going to try and answer some of those questions today, as well as try to uncover the mystery of these exploding golf balls. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Golf Test Dummy, the channel where I use my game to help your game, and welcome to week number 7 of my in-depth single plane swing review. Like I said in the very beginning, I've pulled some questions. I've pulled 6 questions to be exact, one for each one of the previous 6-week single plane swing review videos that have been put out on the channel, and I'm going to answer those questions today. But first, before I get to that, I showed you some of these. At the beginning of the video. I've kept a few. Every now and then, probably, I would say maybe once a week, I'll hit a golf ball into the simulator and I'll hear this weird noise and I'll watch the performance on screen and I'm like, I didn't think I hit it that bad. I'll take a look at the golf ball and notice that it has split. Now, I'm not Superman. There's nothing superhuman about me, as you can tell. Does that mean that this swing has just that much compression and power and it's putting all that stress on the golf ball and eventually it snaps? Do you have this happen to you? Now let's get into the meat of this video, okay? I've picked 6 questions. They are not necessarily a question from each video, but I tried to keep it that way. Some of the comments that I got were not really questions at all, or they weren't exactly germane. Germane? They weren't exactly on point for what the video itself was. So, it might have been about the simulator or something else. So I'm going to go through these questions one by one. Let's get started. All right, our first question comes from Ronald Crookshank. And Ronald says, good stuff. Suggestion, why don't you just interview Todd Graves, as he has spent the last 25 years studying and learning the single plane swing, often under the direct tutelage of Mo Norman himself. He has also done hundreds, if not thousands, of videos. He's written 2 best-selling books, and he and his brother win just about everything they enter tournament-wise. Just an idea, and thank you for bringing this to the attention of your followers. Ronald, that's a great question, and that is a great one to start us off because it speaks directly to the core of what I was hoping to accomplish with this in-depth review. As you know, you can go sign up for Todd Graves' school, and you could also go see him in person. Kirk Younga has much the same setup. You can see him in person. You can do video lessons. Todd and Kirk have some differing views. They have some differing ways of teaching, and they have some different things they are teaching, different elements. Now, I would say that Todd's swing is probably about as close to Mo's as you'll get on the planet. I didn't want you to have to commit to one particular method or another, because if I'd committed to Todd, then I wouldn't be able to learn anything Kirk was teaching. If I committed to Kirk, I wouldn't be able to learn what Todd was teaching. So rather than pick one particular method and go down one particular path that was already established for me, I wanted to establish my own path. I wanted to be able to interpret Mo myself and see how good of a job I could do with it. I wanted to be able to do a DIY version, offer my interpretation of Mo, try and figure it out for myself in the hopes of maybe inspiring you to figure it out for yourself and see if you can interpret Mo and decode what he's saying a little bit. All right, this next question comes from Alan Duncan. I've seen Alan comment on a couple of these videos. Thanks for the support, Alan. Are you going to stick to using the clubs you normally use or adjusted lie angles? By the way, you need to check out that brickwork on that wall. It's starting to crumble. Thanks for the comment, Alan. And the brickwork is fake. It is a photography screen. I'm sure he knew that. He was just making a joke. But for those of you who may not, I've actually had a couple of people reach out and say, hey, did you put brick in your garage? I mean, what if you want to park a car in there? And I'm like, dude, it's a piece of cloth. It's all right. But in regards to his question, I have not had any adjustments made to my clubs, loft, lie, nothing. I haven't even changed the grips on them. I've considered changing the grips, and a while back I actually changed my driver grip to a Jumbo Max grip. The jury is still out on the grip size for me. Maybe at some point I will. Maybe as time goes on, maybe I'll do that. But for now, I just have the standard grips. I've got the standard loft and lie that came with all of my clubs. Honestly, I set up to the club. I sold the club and then I set up to the club rather than trying to make the club set up to me. All right, this next one comes from Gary Johnson. What about stance and ball position? If done correctly, I think the single plane swing produces a more sweeping type of contact, producing a shallower divot. Interested in your thoughts. That's a good question. Now, when you start to dive into the ball position and all of these things, and he did mention the stance width, Todd Graves, I think, has a really good approach to this one. He's got this training board that he sells, actually, and basically what he's saying is that the ball with any iron is pretty much played into the same sort of place inside of his left foot, and then the way you make it either go forward or backward in your stance is simply to move the trail foot forward or backwards. Honestly, when I'm going through it at this stage, and again, mine is a DIY version. Some of you out there might not agree with this. You may think differently than I do, and that's totally fine. This is just my version of the swing. This is what I'm doing. When I sit up, I'm trying to think about my left shoulder. You want the club to bottom out. You want to know where the bottom of your swing arc is, right? Sean Clement and Jim Venetos mentioned this, but if you were swinging with one arm, just your lead arm, then if you drew a plumb line from this shoulder socket down to the ground, that is where the bottom of your swing would be. So when I sit up, I tend to just feel out where my left shoulder is in relation to either being dead on the golf ball, forward of the golf ball, behind the golf ball, and then that kind of controls how wide I sit up, and that also kind of controls where the ball is in my stance. As far as the width of my stance, the longer clubs, it gets wider. The shorter clubs, it gets narrower, obviously. But I just want to make sure when I set up that I get wide enough to where I feel stable and I'm not going to have this excessive movement off the golf ball. All right, on to the next question. This is from Ronald Elkin. He says, great job, Chad. Do you ulnar deviate your wrists at setup? Also, do you push off the trail foot to begin the downswing as per Todd Graves? Your channel is awesome. Thanks, Ron. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. And that's a really great question, and it's actually a couple of questions. And one of these, the first question, do you ulnar deviate your wrist at setup? Ulnar deviation is that wrist. This is, I think, the ulna, and this is the radius bone. I could be incorrect on that. When I set up, I showed this in one of my earlier videos, and this is nothing that I came up with. This is what all of the coaches and teachers show. But I try to get my left arm aligned with the golf club. Now, ulnar deviation, you can see that when I take my grip with my left hand, the left arm is on a different plane from this angle than the shaft. Here, it's on the exact same plane. I try to keep it going straight. Mo referred to the rod and claw. The rod being your lead arm. I'm not going to say left arm because some of you guys out there might be lefties, but the lead arm and the club shaft are the rod. They make one big 6-foot long rod. And then the claw is the right hand coming in from underneath to claw into the club. So this was the motion I think that he was kind of promoting, was to keep this as a rod and pull it away, and this was the claw to be able to move it back and forth. I think that is a pretty good explanation from Mo himself. Now, as far as pushing off of the trail foot, oh man, I'm really glad that this question got asked, because only recently, just in the last week, I've been experimenting. I've played around with different things. I've tried to make the left hand dominant. I've tried to make the right hand dominant. I've tried to make both hands equally used. I've tried to make both hands passive. I've done the same thing with the lower body. I've thought about, okay, if I want to go toward the target, I could collapse the left leg. I could just let the left knee bend, right? Or I could push off of my right leg. And I've played around with both of those, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'll kind of elaborate on that, but keep that question in mind. I'll come back to that in a second. Now, this next question is also from Ronald Elkin again, and that's why I picked these two questions, because they kind of coincide even though they're from the same person. He says, fantastic. In your mind, what is going toward the target? Upper body, lower body, or something else? Now, that question and the answer dovetails together with what I was just talking about in the previous. So when I set up, like I said, I've tried collapsing the left leg and just falling toward the target, and I've tried pushing with the right leg, making sure that my weight stays inside my heels. Mo talked about that all the time. He said he would hate to see any man out there with his weight getting outside and his feet inside of his shoulders. He liked to get his feet outside of his hips and outside of his shoulders. So if you keep that right leg out, almost like a kickstand, if you were to lift your left leg, you fall immediately. You lose that support. Now you can do that a couple of different ways. You can let the left knee bend toward the target, and that is certainly a good thought. And I've done that, and I've had good results with that. But you can also, when you take it to the top and you get to come in, you can almost fall into the target line and push off that right leg. And what I found, and Todd Graves talks about this, he talks about this very thing. When you get to the top, Todd talks about Mo doesn't move as laterally. And I mentioned this in another video, but Mo doesn't move as laterally as he says he did. He always felt like he was really lateraling toward the target. And as a feel, I found that works well for me, but in reality, that's not what happens. So when you push like that, Todd talks about, yes, you get a little lateral shift toward the target, but you're also rotating and you're opening your hips. And with that right foot staying on the ground, your hips can only open so far. They can't open anymore. They only open, and I think he said it was about 15 or 20 degrees maybe. They only open so far. You've got that left knee still flexed, and now you can swing and release into it. He called it the braking system. You get here, and now the brakes get put on, and the club gets flung around. That is a very key component in the downswing for Todd Graves and what he teaches to his students. Now, I did hear Todd in one of his videos mention, I think he was working with maybe Reed Howard and another student, some of his students that he put on camera, and these guys are, just crushing it. And I think Todd was saying that he wanted to get more distance, and he was trying to work on catching up to these kids with their distance. And one thing that I have found is that when I do turn into the backswing and I want to start going forward, if I just kind of get that right leg braced, I turn around a braced right leg, and then I actually, it's not a push off. You're not pushing, but if you kind of get into it and let that stay and put pressure toward the target off of that right leg while you get that little bit of hip turn, I feel like you really get this serious compression on the golf ball. So for me, in the last week, what I've been working with and had some really good results is that right leg sort of giving me that push toward the target. Now, in regards to this question, what is going toward the target? It is not a specific part of my body that is going toward the target. I feel like my center of gravity or my entire being, I want to get it moving toward the target. I want everything to go. Now, obviously, the right leg is staying behind, and this is coming over here. But as far as upper body, center of mass, sort of my center of gravity down here around my belt line, my lower body, my calves and my legs, I feel like everything starts to go toward the target as a whole, and there's not one specific point of me or part of me that goes toward the target. It's me as a whole. Everything, my entire state of being, my entire focus, all my intention, everything in one giant suitcase is all going toward the target. I want to send every bit of my attention and energy that way. All right, this last question comes to us from Mr. Kipling. This is excellent. I really like the way you are getting through the ball. It looks super stable. Hope you keep this swing test going for a while and maybe one last on-course vid. All the best. Thanks, and the same to you there, Mr. Kipling. I appreciate that. And I will say this. The first thing is that, yes, I am intending to stay with this swing for quite a while. I haven't quite finished. I don't think I've hit the wall. I don't think I've hit the end of my improvement. I think the more I stay with it, the more, every week that goes by, I see more and more improvement. I don't think I've improved as quickly with any other swing that I've tested. The other part of that question, the big part of that question, is about another course vlog. Yes, my original intention was that the 4-week mark I was going to do a course vlog where I showed me on course and my progress to that point. And I did that in week number 4. You can go check that one out. Now this is week number 7, meaning next week you should see a course vlog on this channel, barring any bad weather or just some unforeseen circumstance that would prevent me from going out in a week and filming a course vlog that I could edit and put up on the channel. My intention is to have a course vlog on week number 8. Guys, thanks so much for all the support, all the comments that are coming in. I know that I've put out quite a few videos on this now, and you never cease to show up. You're always hitting the like button. You're always giving me the comments. You're always giving me the support. Aside from the questions that I get, I also get a lot of tips and tricks and your experiences with the single plane swing. You share so much with me. And whether I use it or not, whether I agree with it or not, whether you agree with me or not, it's totally fine. We're all sharing information, and I'm not the only one who reads it. Other members, other subscribers on this channel, people that are coming to watch these videos, they're also able to go through the information that you're putting out, and they're able to see it and get help from it as well, and get somebody else's 2 cents and somebody's perspective on different things. So it's a real communal type of vibe going on in the comment section. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You guys are really the best fans on YouTube. I'll keep them coming as long as you keep watching, and I'll see you in the next video.